back to the Single High Coverage Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Woodie, and today we're going to be taking a look at my latest, way too early 2025 mock draft. Now, this article is live currently on NFLTradeRumors.com, so you can go check it out there. I'll try and include a link in the description, and you can follow along with this podcast. This is the fourth edition of of my 2025 mock drafts that I've released so far. I released one back in May. I released one at the end of summer after I'd gone through summer scouting, and then I released another one a couple weeks ago, and it was so popular and successful. I was asked to do another one, and I thought it would be a good topic for a podcast. So I'm just going to go through my picks here, the current draft order after Week 5, so pre Thursday Night Football. This was generated before the 49ers win over the Seahawks last night. This kick off Week 6. This is just after Week 5. And I'm going to be taking a look at some of the picks I made, going through some of my thought process here, some other directions that could go in. Mock drafts this far out are more about prospects to watch and where things are trending rather than specific, prospect to team needs. So much can change between now and April. But it's still a fun exercise, and it gets people informed about the draft process. It's a good way to talk about some of the players that are going in the first round and to explore some of the different ways that the draft could fall, even this far out. So without further ado, let's dive into it. We have the New England Patriots picking at number 1, and I have them selecting Texas offensive tackle Kelvin Banks Jr. The Patriots are in an odd spot for a team picking number 1 overall, that they just selected their quarterback of the future last year. Now, if the Patriots do end up with the number 1 overall pick, which is certainly a possibility, I would say they're a candidate to potentially trade back at least a few spots, because the critical need for this team is along the offensive line. Rookie quarterback Drake May, the number 3 overall selection in the 2024 draft, is slated to get his first NFL start this week against the Texans. The Patriots have been playing, veteran bridge quarterback Jacoby Brissett up to this point, and while he has not played bad by any means, he has not elevated a subpar offense, and clearly the coaching staff, Gerard Mayo, new head coach in New England, clearly looking for some spark for the team. They won their opening game against the Bengals, have lost 4 straight since then. So despite the fact that there isn't much of an offensive line in front of him and he doesn't have any pass catchers that can get open, Drake May is going to kind of be thrown to the wolves, presumably for the rest of the season. So the Patriots, they need a left tackle, they need a right tackle, they need a lot of help on the offensive line. Banks plays left tackle for the Longhorns. He's had a fantastic season. I think he's, to this point, outplayed LSU's Will Campbell. Those are the top 2 tackles on my board coming into the season, top 2 tackles on most people's boards coming into the season. I have moved Banks ahead of Campbell in my rankings since the start of the college football season. I think he's had a much better campaign thus far. It's a little early for him at number 1 overall. If the Patriots wanted to get the best value here, they could go, still in a position of need, they could go with Travis Hunter out of Colorado or Tetairoa McMillan out of Arizona, because they do desperately need a number 1 wide receiver as well. I think the value for that is going to be better at the top of the second round than it's going to be here with the number 1 pick. So I have them going with Banks. They need to protect Drake May. They need to protect their investment. They don't want a repeat of what Bryce Young went through in Carolina. And so it might be too late, given he has, May will have to play the rest of the season without Banks. But at least for 2025, he'll have one of the best left tackles in the draft protecting him. Number 2, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. I have them selecting Michigan defensive tackle Mason Graham. The Bengals, a surprise team at 1-4. Things are not looking good in Cincinnati right now. There's still time to turn the season around and make a push for a wild card spot, or maybe even the division, but that opportunity is quickly slipping away from them. If they do find themselves picking this high, I think a few heads will roll in that building. I think there might be a new coaching staff. Zach Taylor might be out. And all that said, if the Bengals are picking number 2 overall, they would love the chance to draft Mason Graham. Graham might be the best player in the draft. He's not number one on my board. But some people do have him as the number one player in the draft. And the Bengals specifically need reinforcements in the middle of their defensive line. They are getting run on every week. They're generating no pressure outside of Trey Hendrickson on the edge. There's just not a lot of run stuffing presence or pass rushing acumen in the middle of that defense. Graham provides both. He is the best pass rusher from the interior in this draft, at least as of right now. And he makes plays in the run game all the time. He can take on double teams. He can penetrate in the pass rush. He can slip blocks. He really gives you everything you want in a stalwart defensive tackle. Absolutely worthy of a top 5 or even a top 3 pick. And if the Bengals get the chance to draft him, that would be, I think, the best case scenario for them, at least as it stands now. At number 3, we have the Cleveland Browns. I have them taking Arizona wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan. This is the first one where quarterback becomes an option. Deshaun Watson was acquired in that massive trade with the Texans a few years ago. All that guaranteed money, fully guaranteed contract worth over $200 million, was signed right after the trade was completed. It was controversial at the time and has aged very poorly. Watson is probably the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now, or at least close to it. He's just not doing a lot of things very well, and they don't really have an out in his contract. I mean, the whole thing is guaranteed, so they're kind of stuck. Given that, and the fact that I don't think there's really any quarterbacks worthy of a top 5 pick, at least as of right now. Again, a lot can change between now and the draft, but there's just this is not a strong quarterback class at the top. I do think there's some depth. But the best prospects in this draft don't hold a candle, in my opinion, to the quarterbacks we've had the last 2 drafts. McMillan, though, is going to be a weapon from day one in the NFL. He is a big-bodied receiver. He's like 6'5". He can high point the football. He can beat press coverage. But what's so impressive about McMillan is that unlike a lot of other longer, bigger receivers, he has a lot of quickness to his game. He can get separation underneath or deep. He has really good short area quickness and some wiggle. Now, he's not like a Luther Burden, like gonna just, one cut and, leave a defender in the dust kind of movement. But for his size, what he does with his speed and agility is all world. This guy is a weekly star in college football for the Arizona offense, and he's the top wide receiver in this draft, I think, pretty clearly. So the Browns, Amari Cooper is on the last year of his deal, and there's been trade rumors around him anyway. The Browns need a receiver, even if Cooper sticks around past this year. This is just a great fit, though this is a spot to watch for quarterback, depending on where they fall in the draft and how the quarterback class shakes out. The Rams at 4 are another team that could go quarterback. Matthew Stafford getting older. Every year there's rumors of him retiring. But for the most part, I think unless they're picking in a spot where they feel really good about one of the quarterbacks, I think they're going to want to keep supporting Matthew Stafford, give him more weapons, improve his defense, and keep trying to make a run at a Super Bowl with Stafford. So I have them taking Travis Hunter, the wide receiver cornerback from Colorado. Everyone keeps saying he has to pick a spot in the NFL, and we'll see where that ends up. He's doing downright ridiculous things on the football field every week for Colorado. We've never seen a player like him play practically every snap on both offense and defense at such a high level. It's him. I think he is the Heisman favorite, or at least he should be. Actually, Ashton Gente, I believe, is currently the Heisman favorite. More on him in a minute. But Hunter is right behind him. Both absolutely deserving of that honor. Hunter is the best player in college football right now. Just absolutely ridiculous what he does. If he's going to be a weapon in this offense for Matthew Stafford, he's going to be incredible. If you put him on the opponent's top receiver as a cornerback, he will excel at that. I like him as a prospect a little bit more as a corner, but I think he's a top 10, top 5 prospect no matter which position you put him at. So Rams would be getting a star in Hunter. At 5, the Jaguars start. We'll go a little faster here to get through these and not make this podcast like 2 hours long. Um, Jacksonville Jaguars have them going with Michigan cornerback Will Johnson. Now, Johnson is the top corner in this draft. He absolutely locked down the outside. He's got the length, he's got the agility, he's got the flexibility in the hips. I mean, the hand usage, it's all there with him. His tape is impeccable. This is a Jaguars team. Their defense has not been playing great this year. They really could use another cornerback. Tyson Campbell is good. I don't think he's a great number one corner relative to the rest of the league. Um, so if you bring in Will Johnson, you have Tyson Campbell on the other side, that suddenly your secondary is starting to look really really good. A lot can change for Jacksonville between now and the draft. They are 1-4. They're on a 2-game London trip starting this weekend. There's a very real possibility they're going to be 1-6, and if they are 1-6 coming back from London, I'm not sure head coach Doug Peterson will have a job at that point. We'll see, but um, as of right now, anyway, they need a cornerback, and I think Will Johnson. Not only is he the best player left on the board, but he's a great fit in Jacksonville. At 6, we have our first quarterback, Carolina Panthers. I have them taking Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. Now, Panthers fans might be a little wary of taking another Alabama quarterback after Bryce Young didn't work out, but Milroe is a very different player. He was my quarterback 3 coming into the year, behind Shadur Sanders and Connor Weekman. He is my quarterback 1 as of right now. I think he's had a stellar year. I believe he's the only quarterback I would feel comfortable taking in the top 10. And I don't know if he's worthy of a top 5 pick. Again, we'll see how the rest of the process plays out. Milroe was always a toolsy quarterback. He had the athleticism, the running ability, the arm talent. This year, he's really put it all together. He's accurate to all levels of the field. He's making plays on a consistent basis. He's really cut down on the mistakes that plagued him last year. He's not taking nearly as many sacks, which was his biggest flaw a year ago. He's not the most accurate quarterback, but he is plenty accurate enough. He's not an inaccurate quarterback this year by any means. I think Carolina will be getting a very different kind of player in Milroe than they got in Bryce Young 2 years ago, and I think he's the top quarterback on the board. The Panthers need a quarterback, and yeah, I think it's just what they got to do there. At number 7, the Tennessee Titans. I have them taking Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty. Let's go. I was on the Jeanty bandwagon. I was one of the flag planters on Jeanty before the season. I had him as my top running back and a borderline top 10 player on my big board coming into the year. A position I caught some flack for, and boy, how things turned. Jeanty already has 1,000 yards on the season. He scores multiple touchdowns practically every week, runs for at least 150 yards. He was pulled at halftime after 3 touchdown performance again this week. He's the Heisman favorite. It's going to be him or Travis Hunter at the end of the year. And I think he's a better prospect than Bijan Robinson was out of Texas 2 years ago. Now, I was a little bit lower on Bijan than I think the consensus was. He's still top 15 player on my board. I had no problems with whether the Falcons took him, even though I'm generally against running backs in the first round. I do not see him as the all-world running back prospect he was billed as. I do think Jeanty is that good. He's in a different offense this year than he was last year. Last year, he was using the passing game a lot, and we saw his soft hands, route running ability. He saw in pass protection, and then as a runner, man, I mean, he rips off 70-yard gains like it's nothing. He has the breakaway speed, the contact balance, the one-cut ability. He can dance in the hole. I mean, truly just incredible ability. Yeah, Titans are getting. I mean, Derrick Henry's in Baltimore now. Titans get a Jeanty in there. That offense. Yeah, I mean, AFC South should be scared of that. Number 8, the Dolphins. I have them selecting LSU offensive tackle Will Campbell, left tackle for the Tigers. There's some questions about his arm length, and he hasn't had a great year in pass protection, but the 2023 tape is really, really good, and he's still just a very, very solid tackle prospect. He's got movement capability, the way he gets into his pass sets, his hand usage is top notch. He can get out on the move and make things happen in the run game. Dolphins need to protect their quarterbacks better. They need some help in the offensive line. They still have Teron Armstead at left tackle, so presumably Campbell would slide in at right tackle, potentially take over from Armstead at left tackle down the line. I think this is just a great pick for the Dolphins. And number 9, the Jets. I have them taking Texas wide receiver Isaiah Bond, one of the biggest risers on my board since the start of the college football season. He is now my wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 because of Travis Hunter. Wide receiver 3. Bond is so fast. He's the fastest receiver in this class, at least of the top receivers. He's got game-changing types of speed. And this year he's combined that. He was at Alabama before, now he's at Texas. He's running better routes. He's making more plays in the intermediate levels of the field. He's not just a deep threat this year. There's lots of different things you can do with him. He's a complete receiver at this point, and the Jets need someone to complement Garrett Wilson. We've seen this year, the offense not only does it not have a lot of creativity to it, there just aren't a lot of options in the passing game outside of Garrett Wilson. And that lets defenses key in on him, and it really slows and kind of gunks up the offense if he really can't get it going. Bond would just have a jolt of electricity into this offense that would be desperately needed. Number 10, the Arizona Cardinals. I have them taking Tennessee edge rusher James Pierce Jr. Pierce was my number 1 player coming into the year, or very close to. I think he was the top 5 player on my board coming in. I don't think he was actually number 1, but my first couple of mocks, I had him going number 1 overall. He hasn't had the year I think some people expected, myself included, when we projected him as someone who could compete for the number 1 overall pick. But he still had a good year. He's a very toolsy. He's long. He has really good bend and burst off the edge. But he just needs to get more refined in his skill set. One of the things I've been impressed with him this series, he's improved his run game. His run stop percentage has shot up into what's a really good sign that he could be an impactful run defender in the NFL, which is rare for someone of his build. He's a little bit undersized, a little bit thinner. Right now he wins mostly on his athleticism when rushing the passer, and he needs to get better about using some actual moves. He has a decent spin move. He needs to add some more tools to his bag. So that's kind of the main hang-up with Pierce right now, but I still think he's worthy of a top 10 pick. He's still my number 1 edge rusher, at least as of right now. There's just so much there to work with, and he has shown some improvement this year. He hasn't had a breakout. It's quite like some people thought he might, but he's been very good, and there's so much room to grow. Young player. Arizona will be getting a good one in Pierce. Number 11, the Raiders. I have them taking Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. Now, Las Vegas just announced this week they're switching from Gardner Minshew to Aiden O'Connell. As starting quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, second-year quarterback out of Purdue. Go Boilers. He played okay last year. I think better than people expected. He was a 4th-round pick. Kind of thrust into the starting lineup when Jimmy Garoppolo didn't work out. And he does not project as a long-term starting option in the NFL. He could surprise this year, but short of that, the Raiders are maybe the most obvious team in the quarterback market. There's already been rumblings that they're eyeing Shedeur Sanders in next year's draft. I think it's a great fit. Sanders does a lot of really good things. He moves really well. He has an innate feel for the game that's just off the charts. He's a playmaker. He has the arm to hit all levels of the field. He doesn't have an amazing NFL arm, but he has an adequate one. That's not going to be a problem, like I think some people have tried to claim it will be. Sanders, the way he moves in the pocket, avoids pressure, all that, just really good stuff. I think the Raiders would be very happy with Sanders. Number 12, the New Orleans Saints. I have them taking Kentucky defensive tackle Deion Walker. Walker was, I believe, the number 2 player on my big board entering this season, and he hasn't quite lived up to that hype. But he's still been very, very good. I mean, he is a massive, massive presence in the interior, and the way he moves for his size is special. Most big men do not move the way Walker does. He can penetrate in the backfield, make run stops. He's a strong presence, handles double teams. He can drop into coverage a little bit. and plays him underneath zone. I mean, there's just the flexibility and the versatility he has. He rushes from the edge sometimes. At his size, it's just stupid. I mean, that just doesn't happen. And the Saints, they need some. Their defensive line is getting older and a little thinner. They could use some reinforcements there. I think Walker's going to be their kind of guy. Just really raw athleticism. I know they used the late first Brian Brzee a couple years ago, but I mean Walker is just that kind of prospect where you kind of double up and add him to your group, and he can do some really special things. At 13, the Colts. Indianapolis Colts, I have selecting Georgia safety Malachi Starks. I mentioned this in the article, but Nick Cross, a third rounder out in the 2022 draft, moved to strong safety. They have Julian Blackmon on a one-year deal playing free safety. I think corner is this team's biggest need. There's not really a cornerback I would feel comfortable taking in this spot, so have them going with Starks. Starks is a phenomenal player, top safety in this draft. He flies around the back end of a defense as he plays so many different coverages because of what he can do in a true, single high look. He can play a cover 3 safety. He can play a cover 1 safety. He can play man coverage. He can slide down to the slot. He can do some stuff in the box. He'd really add a ton of versatility to this Gus Bradley defense. I think it'd be a great fit in Indy. Number 14, I have the San Francisco 49ers taking Texas A&M edge rusher Nick Scorton. I believe it's Scorton. Scorton transferred to A&M from Purdue, and he has not taken the SEC by storm, but he has been very, very good. Maybe the best of the top edge rusher prospects so far this year. What's so unique about him? He's 280 pounds, but he plays rush end a lot, like a stand-up, 3-4 linebacker type rush end. He has the frame and can play from a 3-point stance as like a big end in a 3-4 system, or just a traditional defensive end edge rusher type in like a 4-3. He drops into coverage. He can play zones. He does a lot of different things really well. He's a versatile player. He's strong. He's got the most refined pass rush skill set, I think, of the top prospects. He could go higher than this, but the 49ers will be getting a really, really good player in Scorton if he falls to 14. The Giants at 15, the New York Giants, I have selecting Miami quarterback Cam Ward, another big riser so far this college football season has been Ward. He was a prospect a lot of people liked last year. A lot of fans, I should say, liked last year. From an evaluation standpoint, he was making way too many mistakes to be a viable NFL prospect, at least a top flight one. This year he's really cleaned that up. You'll occasionally see him throw a ball into double coverage that you're not really sure what he was looking at. But the way he moves in the pocket, avoids pressure, keeps his eyes downfield, he can run, he can make special throws. He's just a phenomenal player, and he's been improving every week this year. He had a couple of interceptions against Virginia Tech a couple of weeks ago, but outside of that, there's really not a lot to criticize for him this year. He's currently my quarterback 3 in this class, after I didn't have him ranked coming into the preseason. The Giants need to reset at quarterback. They're not re-signing Daniel Jones no matter how many Seattle Seahawks they upset. So this would be a great fit in New York, I think. New York would love Cam Ward. At 16, the Philadelphia Eagles, I have selecting Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter. Now, Carter is moving from off-ball linebacker this year, sort of a Micah Parsons type, but a year early. Penn State making sure that they're not going to let the NFL get all that pass rushing potential after he walks out the building. Carter, kind of like Pierce, just plays. He's so bendy. He's a little undersized. He gets off the ball really quickly. Attacks that outside shoulder so well. He plays a little bit more power and strength than Pierce does. A little more aggressiveness in the run game. Doesn't set an edge quite as well as Pierce right now, but 16 might be way too low for this guy come draft time. He's going to test really well. The Eagles, they have not gotten a lot of production from their pass rush. They signed Bryce Huff this offseason from the Jets. He hasn't lived up to that contract. Josh Sweat is solid. Um, they need more bodies out there. Nolan Smith hasn't really lived up to their expectations or their hopes coming into the year. So Carter would be a huge boon for them. At 17, the Chicago Bears have taken Arizona offensive tackle Jonas Savaiinaea. Now, Savaiinaea is an offensive tackle. I think he's playing right tackle for the Wildcats right now. Um, Opinions on this guy range all over. I think I'm one of the highest on him. I think he is fantastic. He moves amazingly for his size. He's better in pass protection than run blocking right now. He can move and kind of get out on the edge as a puller. He doesn't stick on blocks really well and doesn't play with kind of the edge you would want to see in the run game. So I think whichever team gets their hands on this guy is going to want to coach him up in that respect a little bit. But man, the way he moves, he's a really, really big tackle, and he's got great hand usage. He's can counter speed rushers really well. He handles counters and can pick up different stunts and blitzes. A lot of people think he might move inside the guard at the NFL, and honestly, for Chicago, I mean, they need help all over their offensive line. So yeah, I mean, if he sticks a tackle, I think he's an upgrade for them there. If they want to move him inside to guard, he's definitely an upgrade there. So, uh, you know, Savaiinaea, I think is going to be he's a top 20 player on my board. I think that's about where he's going to go, maybe a little bit lower. The Bears would be getting a really good one. I think he's a great fit in Chicago. At number 18, the Green Bay Packers. I was looking Notre Dame cornerback Benjamin Morrison. Morrison is sort of he plays with an aggressiveness that means he's sort of a high risk, high reward kind of play all the time. He doesn't have the greatest anticipation or timing, which can lead to some catches even when he's in good position. But man, I mean, this guy is a prototypical cornerback. He's got the length, the height, the strength, the movement ability. He can stick with anybody in coverage. Yeah, I mean, just refining his instincts a little bit, and this guy can be locked down. I think he's a good fit in Green Bay, who could use some reinforcements in their secondary, and what's overall a very strong roster. I think Morrison's a good fit there. Number 19, the Los Angeles Chargers. I have taking Michigan defensive tackle Kenneth Grant. This is probably lower than Grant is going to go, but I didn't see a great spot for him up until now. Grant could go in the top 10. He didn't play a ton last year. He was a rotational piece. Of course, they have Mason Graham up in Ann Arbor. They also had Chris Jenkins Jr. last year, who's now with the Bengals. Grant is just a really big dude who can move. I mean, this guy is fast. He can shoot gaps. He can penetrate. He has like actual pass rush moves he uses on the interior, which you don't always see for defensive tackle prospects. Some really good ones too. This guy is a really good player. Chargers need reinforcements on their defensive line. If he gets to them, or if they're picking higher, they're gonna run this card in as fast as they can. It's just a phenomenal fit. Number 20, Seattle Seahawks. I have them taking LSU offensive tackle, offensive lineman, Emory Jones Jr. Anyone who did watch the Thursday night game last night knows that the Seahawks need to improve their offensive line, and Emory Jones Jr. gives them a chance to do that. Jones is someone I think might move inside the guard. I think that might be his long-term fit in the NFL. But he's still a good tackle prospect. He struggles a little bit at protecting his outside shoulder. Can be a little bit vulnerable to counters. Can get a little off balance if the rusher is really attacking his outside shoulder. He doesn't quite have the foot speed to mirror the fastest edge rushers he faces. But everything else in his game is like first round worthy. He is a mauler in the run game. He can really move at his size, gets out, locks onto people, he can climb to the second level. In pass protection, like bull rushes you're not going to go through his chest. He's got the sand in the pants, if you will, to really anchor down and stand his ground. Whether he's at right tackle or on the interior, the Seahawks, and he's an immediate upgrade for them. And number 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have taken Missouri wide receiver Luther Burden III. Burden was one of the best players in college football last season, and we all had high hopes for him coming into this year. He has not been amazing. But he's still very good. He's fast. He's elusive. He can track the ball really well down the field. And he can make people miss in the open field. He's really good on screens, design touches. And for the Steelers, I mean, they need playmakers in this offense. It's George Pickens and not much else right now for them. Justin Fields has played adequately to this point in the season. We'll see if Russell Wilson ends up playing at some point later. Overall, it's not going to be a settled quarterback situation, most likely. But I don't really know if there's another quarterback I would want to take in the first round right now. So they need upgrades at wide receiver almost more than they need a quarterback. So Burton is a great fit there. Number 22, the Denver Broncos. I was selecting Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. Egbuka is a big slot. I mean, it's the best way to describe him. He can play a little bit on the outside, and he does at Ohio State. In the NFL, I think his skill set is best suited to the slot. But he can really move up and down the field. He can make big plays. He has good hands, though he doesn't always show it. He's gotten comped to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and while I think it's a little lofty, that is the type of player Egbuka is going to be in the NFL. For the Denver Broncos, who want to help support their young quarterback and Bo Nix, I think Egbuka is going to be a major upgrade for them in their receiving core. The Dallas Cowboys, I have selecting Ohio State at number 23, I should say. I have selecting Ohio State running back Quinshon Judkins. Judkins was a lot of people's running back one coming into the year, transfer from Ole Miss. He's been as advertised. He's been excellent. Genty, obviously, skyrocketing up draft boards. Not mine, though. We already had him up there. But Judkins is very, very good in his own right. I do think there's two legitimate first-round prospects at running back this year, which is a rarity. Could say repeated like the Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs year, where we have two in the top 15. That would not surprise me. I mean, Judkins is a three-down back. He can do it all. He can catch passes out of the backfield. He can split out a little bit. As a runner, I mean, his running profile is incredible. Contact balance, power, speed, elusiveness. He's got the total package. I mean, when you draft a running back in the first round, you want a guy like Quinshon Judkins, and he's going to give the Cowboys, who really, all those years of Zeke and Tony Pollard, and they just they don't really have a guy like that right now. Not late in career Zeke, and Reek Goodell's been fine, but I think people have been mocking running backs to the Cowboys for a while, and I do think this is the year where we could see them take one in the first round. Number 24, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have selecting Ole Miss edge rusher Princely Umanmielen. Umanmielen is a interesting prospect. He's a little bit older and a little bit raw at the same time while still having a bag of moves. It's a weird evaluation where you can see all the different ways he wins on the edge. But it's almost like he hadn't quite put it all together yet. He's starting to this year. I think he's a strong first-round prospect. He's got length and speed. He converts speed to power really well. He can attack He can attack both shoulders, the tackle. He's solid in run defense. And the Buccaneers, I mean, they need more than anything else. This team needs an edge rusher. Yaya Diaby, second-year man out of Louisville, is their only rotational edge rusher currently under contract for next year. So I think Umanmielen is a fantastic fit there. Speaking of fantastic fits, at 25, I have the Buffalo Bills selecting Stanford wide receiver Alec Iomanner. Iomanner, one of my favorite players in this draft, has had an up and down year, but the way he wins is exactly what the Bills are missing in this offense now that Stephon Diggs is in Houston. You need a guy who can win one-on-one matchups, who can win on the outside and down the field, and Iomanner is exactly that kind of player. Iomanner had the game of his life against Travis Hunter in Colorado last season. That kind of put him on draft radar. And this year, I mean, he is Stanford's number one option. He struggled with drops a little bit, but they go to him constantly, and he's always open. Whether he's beating zone coverages, man coverages, press, really doesn't matter. The guy is open. He can win in contested catch situations. I really like Iomanner as a prospect. Number 26, the Baltimore Ravens. I'm selecting West Virginia offensive tackle Wyatt Milum. He is someone who has shot up draft boards this year because of how well he's playing. He was an athletic prospect. Coming into the year, I had him outside my top 5 offensive tackles. Athletic, moves well, but needed to refine his game, and he's done that. He's one of PFF's highest graded offensive tackles this year, week after week after week, putting up great performances in both run blocking and pass blocking. This might be low for where he ends up. I know the Ravens need a tackle. They would love to get their hands on Milam. We'll see where he ends up going, and kind of where he ends up trending as we get into some all-star circuit and he starts testing. I think testing is going to be important for him. Kind of separate him as is he like a top 15 guy or maybe just like a late first rounder type. Um, but yeah, Milam would be a great fit in Baltimore. Number 27, the Atlanta Falcons. I was selecting Arkansas edge rusher Landon Jackson. This is a little bit off the board for me. I think Jack Sawyer I have ranked a little bit higher as an edge rusher prospect than Jackson. The Falcons need some upside in their edge rusher group. They just don't have much of a pass rush right now. Landon Jackson, he could be a special kind of prospect. He's 6'7", 280 pounds, just really long, weird build, but 280 pounds, you typically think of like a 3-4 defensive end or, edge rusher on early downs who swings inside on passing downs. Um, Jackson can do that stuff. He's more versatile than that, though. At 6'7", he's got 280 pounds. He's got the build of like an edge rusher, just kind of supersized. He's a really good run defender. His pass rushing is lagging behind a little bit. But man, he's just a unique prospect. I think he'd be an interesting flyer to take at the end of the first round on a guy who could really become something in the NFL. A really unique kind of player. Number 28, Detroit Lions. I was selecting Alabama offensive guard Tyler Booker. Booker's been phenomenal in pass protection this year. The Lions, lost some pieces on their offensive line after last season, and could use an upgrade on the interior. This is a really strong roster overall. There's no any glaring needs on this roster. I think Booker could be a good fit here, though. He's got the mentality I think Lions head coach Dan Campbell's going to love. He needs to get a little bit better at sustaining blocks, the second level, to really take the next step in run defense or run blocking. But man, he as a pass blocker to protect Jared Goff, I think would be an upgrade for them right away. Number 29, the Washington Commanders. One of the biggest surprise of the NFL season so far. They've been incredible. Jaden Daniels, man. I am selecting Texas offensive tackle Cameron Williams. Williams is not a player I really talked about at all yet in my draft coverage, but he's kind of someone new on my radar. I was able to watch him earlier this week, and he has had a really good year. Texas' right tackle, obviously, Kelvin Banks Jr., the left tackle I had going number one at the Jaguars. Williams, 6'5", 335 pounds. He dropped some weight from last year. His pass sets are really nice. He's one of the fastest off the ball. He can set really well when he is, doing his initial kick slide. He gets his hands up. He needs to get a little bit better in run blocking. He's very inconsistent there right now, and that's what's really pushing him down the board here. But the Commanders need an offensive tackle. Williams is a really good one. I think he could go higher than this if he can play a little bit more consistently down the stretch of the season. Number 30, the Houston Texans. I'm taking Penn State safety Kevin Winston Jr. This one is just truly best player available for the Texans. This is a great roster, and they could use an interior offensive lineman, but I don't really have one left that I think is worthy of a first-round pick. So Winston is a tackling machine. He's just a really, really great zone defender. The way he's able to use his eyes to follow the quarterback and to make plays in the ball, exactly what you want out of a first-round safety. DeMeco Ryans does a lot of really creative things with his defense, and I think Kevin Winston would just let him be even more creative when he does that. Number 31, the Kansas City Chiefs. I have something Michigan tight end Colston Loveland. Loveland fell a little bit in this draft, this mock, but I think he'd be a great fit in Kansas City. We all know Travis Kelce's getting older and seems to be preparing for a lot of things he might want to do after football. Um, Loveland, kind of like Kelsey, can make an impact in both blocking and receiving game. He can play in line, but most of his damage is done in the passing game. He's good at beating zone coverages. He can win in man coverage situations. He can win deep down the field. He can win in the intermediate. He's one of those all-around tight end prospects. Now, I don't think he's like a Kyle Pitts, Brock Bowers level of prospect where you think, oh, like, this guy's like a top 15 kind of player. I don't think he's that. But he is absolutely a first-round tight end. And, as the Chiefs' offense continues to evolve and add new pieces, I think Loveland would fit in really well there. And then last but not least, talk about the Minnesota Vikings. 5-0 Minnesota Vikings at number 32. I have selecting East Carolina cornerback Siobhan Revell. Now, Revell is interesting. He tore his ACL in practice a couple weeks ago, so you got to put that asterisk whenever we talk about Revell. He's not going to be able to test pre-draft. He's not going to get to participate in the All-Star circuit. And this was a guy who was kind of trending for the Quinyon Mitchell route. Mitchell, of course, corner out of Toledo in last year's draft, first-round pick for the Eagles. Mitchell, was a guy people loved his tape at Toledo, and then he went to the Senior Bowl, dominated the competition there, and everyone was like, well, yeah, this is not a competition level thing. He's just that good. And he went from like a top 20 player to like someone who was a top 10 player on many boards. Obviously, all defensive players, fell in that draft. He ends up going at 22, but Revell was kind of trending in that direction. Now I'm really not sure where he's going to go. He is athletic as hell. This guy is super toolsy and plays with such aggressiveness and confidence that I think NFL teams are going to love. He played well last season against a couple of better wide receiver prospects. We just haven't seen him play at consistent NFL competition at East Carolina. And that makes it really difficult to say if teams are going to look at his tape and be like, yeah, this guy is a first-round corner, or if they're going to go, well, the competition level is a question mark. The medicals on him, like, is he going to be as athletic coming off the ACL injury? I don't know. He was a player who was probably trending towards the top 20 pick before the injury. Now he's going to go late first round or early second, most likely. But the Vikings need a corner. I think Revell is much better than this. I think he's one of the best. I would have him ranked above Benjamin Morrison, just for context, without the injury. So, I think it's a steal if the Vikings can get him at 32. And we'll see how the draft order changes, obviously, and how his recovery goes. If teams feel confident in their medicals and his recovery is going well, they might be willing to take him even higher than this. So we'll have to see. But that's going to do it for us at Single High Coverage. Like I said, if you've just been listening along, go ahead and check out the mock draft on NFLTradeRumors.com. I have 2 articles that go up there every week, so you can go ahead and check that out. As always, tune back in next week. Single High Coverage every Friday afternoon. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.